arrest in a nearly 4-decade-old cold case. Thanks to cutting-edge DNA technology, the arrest happening exactly 39 years to the day.
When Paramount Nanolabs used that sample to create 3D models of the suspected killer's face.
It's heartbreaking. We miss her, and we're going to find her. We're going to keep looking till we do.
It's like a never-ending nightmare. It doesn't end. It keeps returning and coming back.
So I guess I've got to hit the next one at 1 instead of just after it clicks to 1.
I was going to say a little bit of a pause there.
So all of a sudden we were there. Oops. So we've got 8 people in so far.
So that's not bad. It's a pretty good little start. Welcome everybody for watching. Welcome Tammy.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick intro. We're double digits, so it's okay to do the intro now, right?
Yeah.
So tonight we are talking to Tammy Meunier-Pease. Is it Meunier-Pease?
Whichever you prefer. Meunier-Pease is good.
Is that the French version?
Yes.
She's the daughter of Jerilyn Towers, one of the victims of serial killer James Hicks. Tammy, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Look at that. First comment.
Oh, Garrison. I met Garrison.
She says, "Love you, Mom."
Thanks, Garrison.
So I should just, for transparency reasons, and I don't know, because I really like you, I should say that Tammy and I have known each other for quite a few years now. I think 8 or 10 years anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, probably
Definitely
more than that.
Yeah.
We're getting old.
Yeah.
So we used to work together, and we talked about your mom's case a couple times. It's funny because I think I knew you a year or two before I knew that your mom was a victim, and had been murdered. So, I've talked about it several times, trying to get it on here and covered. So I'm so excited that we're able to finally do that tonight.
Yes, definitely.
So if you wouldn't mind kind of telling us about your mom, what you remember of her, and then kind of lead up to the days of before the disappearance and everything that happened.
So my mom, I was 12 when my mom disappeared, and what I know of her was pretty, it was a chaotic life, a lot of alcoholism, dysfunction in the family. We moved a lot, but she was a good person. She did the best she could with what she had to work with, I guess, or what she grew up in herself. So, like I said, we moved a lot, and we had some good times, and there were a lot of difficult times as well. I wasn't in the home when she disappeared, as far as living in the home. I was staying with my dad. Brother of mine were living with my dad in St. Albans, and my mother asked for us to visit one weekend, October 16th of 82. And we went there, we spent the day, then we went bowling in Pittsfield at the bowling alley. And after some bowling, it was a difficult time there because that was my safe place, the bowling alley, where people didn't know what my childhood was like. That was the place I went with my dad, not my mom. And so I bowled a lot. And my mother, being an alcoholic, was in the bar drinking, and she had spent the money that was for our bowling. So she couldn't pay for our bowling. And she sent my her stepfather back to Newport to get a jar of money and bring it back, and had us kids, my two brothers and I, to roll the money in front of people. So I was angry. It wasn't a good time. It was very embarrassing, humiliating. But again,
I can imagine being 12 years old, that's what the age where kids start thinking they're all cool, and then
well, that was my place where I was, people knew me as like a really good bowler. That's what people knew about me. That's pretty much all they knew about my life, kind of. Mm-hmm. And so to see that and have people understand that there was another part of my life, was hard. And being 12, that's good. So then we finally left the bowling alley, and I can remember I was so angry. And my mother wanted to stop at the Gateway Lounge, which is now, I think, China Way is what it's called in Newport. It was a Gateway Lounge at that time, and she wanted to stop and go to the bar and have some drinks. Oh, and I was so angry. And I remember I can still see her when she got out of the vehicle, and she turned and she waved and said, goodbye. And all I could think underneath was, and what I said to myself was, I hope you die. And being 12, you say things, you think things because you're angry.
Right.
So that's hard. I lived with that for quite some time. That feeling of guilt. Then she went into the bar, and we went to her house. She shared like a little cottage in Newport with her mom and stepdad. And she had half of the house where she lived with my brother, one of my brothers. And my other brother and I were just visiting that night. So we went back there, we kind of hung out, and then we went to bed. She was supposed to call that night to my stepdad, her stepdad, and just say, I need a ride home, I'm ready to come home. So, and that call never came. So, but go ahead.
So when did you realize that she was missing? Was it the next morning?
The next morning, her stepdad had been sitting up, and he had seen a set of headlights pull into the driveway, and he assumed that she had gotten a ride home, and so he went to bed. And when I woke up that next morning, go back a little bit. When we went to bed that night, it's like that section of the house, there were really no walls that separated anything. It was like a little cottage. So I was sleeping in her bedroom, but you could see into the living room. You could see into the kitchen. And that's pretty much all there was there. And all the lights were on. I can remember my brothers had the music banging and like it was loud. And when I woke up that morning, and she wasn't there, it really wasn't shocking. In the past, growing up, there have been times when she just didn't come home, but she would call at some point and say where she was or when she'd be home, but it really wasn't that strange. And I remember saying, there was a man standing over my bed last night. I remember seeing a man standing over my bed, and everybody's like, oh, you were just dreaming it. It didn't happen, whatever. No, it did happen. I remember. So basically then they ended up calling the police because they couldn't, they didn't know where she was, and it kind of went from there. And I went back home. My brother and I went back home with my dad in St. Albans, and so that was what happened that night there. And like I said, we weren't living there.
What was the initial thoughts like that morning? Were you worried at all about her, or did you just think, okay, she's out partying doing something?
Yeah, not worried at all. And it's hard because I don't want people to think, oh, you don't care, and you don't didn't care or whatever. But you had to understand the life that we were living at that time. Was she had left for a week before and with someone, and so, but she always came back. But the kids were left, my brothers and I were left alone sometimes. So, it wasn't strange to us or me.
Right.
Right.
How old are your brothers, or how old were your brothers at this time?
I think the next one would be about 3 years older than me, maybe a couple years. And my oldest brother was getting ready to graduate, I believe. So he would have been about 18. So
you're the youngest?
Yes. He lived there with my mother. So we all have different fathers. We do have another brother that was adopted by my mother's sister and raised as our cousin. So that kind of can tell you the dysfunction in the family. And
yeah, it was a little rough, huh?
Yeah, it was. I'm not sure I thought it was real rough. I think that I knew it wasn't normal, but not dysfunction to the extent that when you look back, like, wow.
Yeah.
lots of them. So yeah.
All right. So the next day, who did they contact? State police or
No,
Newport?
they did Newport Police, Chief Ricker. So, and again, you have to remember, my mother was an alcoholic. She was for, welfare. There wasn't really a lot of like surprise or a lot of quickness to go find her, I guess you should say. They looked into it, but that was about it. My grandmother had to really push, I think, for them to really do anything.
Was she kind of well known to them? It's like, okay, this is, just.
She wasn't well known to the police. My mother I don't really think she had a criminal history at all, really. Maybe an OUI or something, but nothing major that she would have attracted the attention of law enforcement. But, when they asked about what her norm was, what's normal, what's not normal, and then they find out she was at a bar, she was an alcoholic, that sort of thing. I think, she just took off, they think, and she'll be back. So it wasn't given the attention probably that it probably would have been today. Definitely, and so it took a little longer. But they did, the chief went to Hicks' house eventually, within a few days, and talked to him about it because the bartender said
I was going to
that.
ask you, how did they find Hicks? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So he was well known in the community, at the bar, and he was living in Etna or Carmel at the time. I can't remember when he was at that time, but so then they talked to the bartender and anybody who was there, and the bartender, I think her name was Judy, said, "Well, we don't, I guess I remember seeing her, but I don't remember seeing her leave with anybody, that sort of thing." And then she remembered James Hicks was there, and that they may have walked out the door together. And yes, she recalled finally that they had been in a corner drinking together. He had purchased her drinks, so all night long. So, but my mother did not get into his vehicle. He offered her a ride. She denied it, which he says she denied it, which is kind of strange. But anyways, and he said that he headed towards home and he needed gas. So he went back to Flood's in Newport, which is now, I don't know if it's still Flood's or not. It's on Route 7, that big store there on the left. And he said that he pumped his gas and he saw my mother coming out of the store, asked her if she wanted to ride. She accepted. And he doesn't say that they went back to the house, but they did. They did go back to the house. You have to understand, he's not telling the truth about everything. So he thinks he's winning when he keeps a little bit of it to himself. I did this, but I'm not going to tell him that. So
Right.
Weird.
Yeah. So he says they went to the lake where the boat landing was in Newport, and for whatever reason, he said he got into the back seat, and she was dead, and she was in the front seat, and he said that he doesn't know what happened. He strangled her with his hands. He believes his hands, and then he said he moved her into the back seat. My mother wasn't a small person. She had just been released from the hospital, and with severe alcoholism, her kidneys and liver were failing due to the alcoholism. And so she was very bloated at that time, and she was well over 200 pounds. So he's not a big man either. He's 5'6", maybe, and was like 170-ish pounds, maybe. So, and to move her, so that's just odd to me, but to move her from the front seat to the back seat must have taken quite a bit. Dead weight, and that, I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying definitely dead weight, and so, and then they supposedly left there and he drove home where his firm was.
So to backtrack, when the police officer first interviewed James, first of all, they didn't think that, they thought your mom had run off or whatever, right? And that was the story that he told them, was that she had run away with some truck driver, and was,
No,
I think,
that
down in
was
Florida.
that was his wife. He said
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry. See, I just screwed that up. Oh my gosh.
There's a
Sorry.
lot, so much to it.
It's been a long day. I started my day at 3 this morning.
Yeah, no, there's so much to it. So when they talked to him, they didn't even realize his wife had been missing. So he's like, "You're here to
He
talk."
brought her up.
I'm sorry.
I said,
Yeah, so
he brought her up. Yeah.
Chief Ricka had no idea, and he's starting to get all like crazy acting, and he dumped a bottle of water over his head, and he's acting strange, and he's like, "You're here to, you think I killed my wife," and which was in 1977, I believe. And this is 82, and Ricker's like, "What?" No, I'm here to talk about Jerilyn Towers. And actually, what they found out was my mom was in the trunk when the police officer, he wasn't.
No kidding.
Yeah, so he was in the trunk, and she was in the trunk, and they didn't have a search warrant. They were just there to talk to him, and so, yeah. How crazy is that?
Do you know if they asked if they could look around at all, or?
No, I don't think they just asked him, he acted strange. And what happened was his girlfriend, her name was Linda Marquis, and she just told them to get off the property and leave. So they did. And then they're like, okay, something's strange here. This doesn't seem right. And so then my mother's case kind of went to a standstill because there was nothing more, nobody had come in and said they'd seen anything. And so that kind of took the back burner to his wife's disappearance, and they went on to work on that. And so they did that. And in 1983, I remember I was in an Upward Bound program at the University of Maine because I was in high school. I spent the summer there, and he was brought up on charges. And he was the first case in Maine to be brought up on murder charges, 4th-degree murder, I believe, without a body.
Right.
So, and he was convicted.
And he was, they were successful. So that was definitely
They were, because the babysitter saw his wife dead, that she assumed was dead on the couch when she walked in.
Yeah, can you tell us that story? So she come home that night.
Jenny Hicks was from everything I learned, that very nice woman. Loved her family, loved her kids. It was a toxic relationship. Hicks was very abusive, that sort of thing. So she, Susan Mattingly, I think her name was the babysitter, and she was a foster care out of Massachusetts, and she ended up moving in somehow with Hicks and his wife, and took care of the kids. So Hicks started to hit on Susan, like sexual touching her, that sort of thing. And she told Jenny, and Jenny had enough at that point. And she confronted him. She told Susan to go out that night with her boyfriend, and she was going to talk to Jimmy, is what she called him. And so she did that. And when she came home about 4 a.m., James Hicks was sitting in front of a TV with just static playing. And Jenny was on the sofa, but in a very weird position, like not like she was laying there herself, like somebody had put her there. Her hair was down over her face. You couldn't see her face. Her arms were in an awkward position. So he said, "Oh, Jenny's sleeping, go to bed." She did. And she heard like somebody dragging something across the floor, that sort of thing. And then she was scared of him herself. And then she woke up and Jenny was gone, but her wallet, her glasses, and she was pretty, had a vision problem. So she could not have gone anywhere without her glasses, and her purse was still there. He said she left, and she left with a trucker, blah, blah, blah. And so that's how that went. And nobody really looked into it. An officer, it wasn't handled properly. Like a sheriff's department person came and talked to him when Jenny's family contacted them, and he said, "Oh, she left with a trucker." So the kid stayed with him. And so that's that kind of, he just kept saying she called, and he's heard from her, people have seen her, that sort of thing, but nobody had ever seen her, only him, So he just went on with his life and raising his kids, and he was abusive to them. and unfortunately, and they lived a very, very tough life. Actually, I went to school with one of his children when my mother was missing. It was very
Wow.
awkward. It was awkward. So, because she knew that people thought her dad had killed my mother. My mother's
Yeah.
been
Did
found.
Did you guys ever talk about it?
Never, never.
No.
People ask
Yeah.
why.
That's
I felt for her. I really felt bad for her. I had nothing, no anger towards her, at all. You know. So
how long after your mother went missing did this happen?
This was
did
before.
This was the way. Oh, right. Sorry.
It was,
Yeah.
the 77.
And that was 77 and 82, right? Okay.
There's like so many, the way it went, it was kind of all around to get to the end of everything. So, so then he was convicted of her fourth degree murder, I believe. He was sentenced to 10 years at Thomaston at the time, and he only served 8 because of good behavior. So,
yeah, he had them all fooled, right? Like fourth degree
No,
murders, manslaughter charge, I think.
yeah, it's funny because he wasn't a troublemaker. He always went to work, all of that. He other than some weird stuff that he had an anger issue, there really wasn't like anything that said, oh, this man's a serial killer, So they he gets out, and he's with I think Linda Marquis still. She marries him while he's in prison. Linda did. That was the girl that told the police to leave that day. And then I have an uncle that got involved, Vance Tibbetts, who has now passed away. But my uncle did, I think, quite a few years at Thomaston himself. So when Hicks was in Thomaston for killing his wife, they let my uncle meet with James Hicks in a room privately. So my uncle was known as pretty much rough and tough, And so he said, "You killed my sister." And Hicks said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "Yes, you did." And I don't know. It kind of went like that. And then he gets out of prison. My uncle starts stalking him, basically. And then as I got a little bit older, probably about 18, 19, I started stalking him. So, yeah, I would drive by and pull into his driveway. It was just, I lived near him later, early 20s. And I would pull in. I remember the night I got stuck kind of in his driveway. It was a winter night, and I was like, oh. Yeah, but I got out. So, and then.
How did you get out? Did he come out and help you get out? Or
thankfully, I
told me
walked
the story.
and got out.
Oh.
But, and I did.
Yeah, that must have been a panic-inducing couple minutes there.
A little. He hated me. He would send messages, like he would tell his daughter's, I don't know if it was his niece or whatever, to give me messages at school that, he would kill me, he would do this, he would do that. And so he would threaten. And then I started going to this road to the left of his house where I knew my mother was. I just knew she was buried there. And I would go out back in the woods. My aunt went out with me once as well. There was a lot of back in the day, people threw bottles and garbage, just threw it out in the back, in the woods. And there was a lot of bottles and stuff out there. And I just started digging, started moving things. I went out there multiple times. I knew she was there. I knew, maybe probably 100 yards, maybe, from where she was actually buried. So, and then one time the medical examiner, I think it was a medical examiner, they went out to take a cadaver dog out to his property to sniff around, see if they could find anything. And the dog didn't hit on anything, and they left. And come to find out, the medical examiner's vehicle and some state police were parked right over where my mother was. They parked over where
the dog to
Oh,
that area.
man.
I remember him coming at the courthouse and apologizing to us for that. Not his fault. Not his fault.
No.
So, yeah. Do you want me to keep going or tell you how it?
Well, just real quick. I mean, it's interesting because I know your last conversation with your mother wasn't the best, probably, or your last thoughts at least, and yet you felt the need to find her, right? Bring her justice. And
it was a strange relationship, when you, no matter, I think, what your parents do sometimes, and sometimes an abusive, I don't think she wanted to be abusive or put us necessarily into dangerous places or things that happened. A lot that happened that was very, it was very abusive. Not even necessarily just at her hands or that sort of thing. But the situation she put us in was dangerous, right. The people around us. But she was still my mother, and you'll hear a lot of kids who are abused say, no matter what, they were still your parent. They're still my parent. And so I did, as I grew, I was very angry with her, but I learned to understand that the life she lived as a child was much like what I was living as a child. So sometimes you live what you know, or she tried to overcome alcoholism, and she would go to the Seton rehab and would have Terrible Tuesday, where you go in and you sit in a circle and you tell her how bad she is as an alcoholic, knowing you're going home at some point with her. So that was never fun. So that was multiple times. And so she tried to be sober. And then as soon as she left rehab, there were people right there to hand her drink back again. So
jeez.
My mother found love and self-worth in a man. That's where she found herself. And so there was a lot of men in and out of the house. She just wanted to be loved, I think.
Yeah. So we do have a comment here. Randa Thibodeau. You broke the cycle through oh my gosh. Can't read
my daughter.
Broke the cycle though with your own children. Forever grateful for my amazing mother.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yep.
So her name's, is it Randa?
Randa, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Randa.
Thanks, Randa.
Wanted to call you Randa.
Yep. And I did try to do that, definitely. So I guess that's why she was still a human being. She didn't deserve what he did to her. Nobody does, and yeah. So
and
go ahead.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You said that, they might have handled things differently today. And unfortunately, we do still see situations like this where someone might have a substance abuse issue or the mental health, and it's not necessarily handled appropriately. It's not looked into as probably quickly as they would have other cases.
I agree.
Not to be all doom and gloom, but they do still. Things are not necessarily a whole lot better when it comes to attention for cases like this.
Definitely. I think some people get a little more attention now, but you're right. If you have a substance abuse issue or things like that, I think you're looked down upon and sometimes not considered as an important case as some. So, yeah.
So Matt is like reading my mind, because that's going to be my next question.
We're about ready to get onto that.
So what makes him a serial killer? So Jenny Sear Hicks,
yep.
Your mom.
Yep. And there was a woman. They still hadn't found my mom's body. They hadn't found Jenny's body. And James Hicks decided to date again, another woman, very independent woman who had worked she'd been in the military, not his type at all. He likes women that he can control. And he met her while working at the Brewer Motor Inn, I think it's called. And he ended up moving in with her. She was struggling with some stuff. She had lost a pet, just some depression, things like that. He was very controlling and stuff. So finally she wanted out of the relationship, and he killed her, and he strangled her. And of course the police, by this time, all these women keep coming up missing. So he's on the radar. He's being followed. The state police are following him. The police have gone to the FBI. They labeled him, they said definitely a serial killer, even though they hadn't found any bodies. So when the police went to, he's got to be the luckiest man. It's really, the police went to investigate her disappearance because she just disappeared. She had planned on moving out. She had already moved some things and took her dog to her sister's, to Wendy's house. And so the police came and asked, Jimmy, where's Lynn? Name is Lynn Willette. And he's like, oh, she took off. Everybody takes off. Nobody ever sees them again. Unfortunately, she was in the closet dead. So once again,
Wow.
and of course they didn't have a search warrant. They didn't have anything. They could not look. So
Jesus.
yeah, it's crazy. And so then time goes by and he starts seeing this girl named Brandy. She's like 18 or so, and he's 40 years old. And she gets pregnant. DHS steps in, takes the child. She has another child. DHS steps in, takes the child because of him, because of all, things that the missing women, all of those things. My uncle.
What year was this?
Lynn was disappeared in, my mother was 82. Oh gosh, I can't remember the date for Lynn. But it wasn't too much longer, I don't think. It was maybe 5 to 10 years, something like maybe 5 years.
Still in the 80s.
I think she was still in the 80s. It might have been the 90s. I'm sorry. It was
No,
so many.
that's fine. That's fine. Sorry to sidetrack.
Okay, no problem. And so he got tired of DHS and everybody following him and interfering with his life. So they go to Texas, Levelland, Texas, and they figure they can maybe have another kid. Nobody would follow them because she was pregnant again. And he starts doing, so Lynn is missing. Nobody finds her. The family knows he killed her. And he's just a smooth, charming, he can convince people, some people. I mean, everybody pretty much knew what he did. Just couldn't prove it, couldn't find a body. So he goes to Levelland, Texas, and he starts doing, it was really like a 67-year-old woman that takes down this serial killer. Her name was June Moss. He starts doing some, handyman work for her, painting, that sort of thing. And he's working for her, and he worked for her for a few months. And, he did good work. He showed up and everything. And then one day he just like snapped, and he showed up, and she had written him a check. He went to the bank to cash it for $425. The bank said the account was closed or something. She had to go into the bank, and she wrote another check. He took the cash. He bought the materials. He backed up to her house to unload. She comes out. Of course, she's 67 years old, sweet woman. He has a beer. And he said, do you mind if I have a beer? And she said, yes, I don't want you drinking in my house. And he says, well, I'm going to get some work done, and I'll put the beer out here, leave the beer out here. So all of a sudden he just changes his demeanor. He's always been nice to her, quiet, she said. And he comes in with his gun, and she's in a chair, and he says, I killed my wife in Maine, and I did time for it, and I need to get out of here. And he makes her drink this cough syrup, a bottle of cough syrup. Well, it's in she's like, is that poison? And he takes a swig off it. And he's like, no, see, it's not poison, it's cough syrup. She's like, well, I don't want to drink it. And he forces her to drink it, and she does. And then she vomits a few times, and he's still kind of ranting and raving. Do you have guns in the house that I can take? I need you to sign over your vehicle to me. And he made her write these notes to her family, everything, saying that she was lonely, nobody to take care of her. And she signed the letters to her family. He made her write it twice, as in her full name, June E. Moss. Like, you would never write that to your kids. It was her way of telling her kids, if they ever found it, that she didn't write that. She was under duress.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's very smart in that situation.
Yeah,
that's really.
It's the only way we found my mother was because of this woman, and the other two women. And so he's starts running the bath water, and she's in the chair, and she's trying to figure out how she can get out of this house, because he locked out all the doors. but she hears him in the back, and she hears this wind chime moving, and that's where she had a wind chime hanging in this closet. She knew that's where the guns were, and that she had showed him that. She knew he was so far back that she got up and she unlocked the doors and she got out and she ran to the neighbor. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that? She ran in, and one of the neighbors' kids, grandson, whatever, like a teenager, young adult, was there, and she ran inside, and they actually went out and followed him. 2 people followed him, 2 men in a vehicle, and they saw him throw some stuff in a dumpster, and they called the police, and the police arrested him. Well, he's charged with some aggravated assault on her, that sort of thing. They take him to jail. He knows he's going to Texas is pretty serious about crime. So you come in Texas, you get some pretty severe punishment, especially against an elderly person. And he knew. He didn't like that prison, that jail. He was going crazy in there. He did not like Hispanics. He did not like Black people. And in Texas, there are a lot of, Black people. There are Hispanics. There's multiple, white people, that sort of thing. And he was so upset about that. He knew he wasn't going to do well there. So his plan was he came up with a plan to reach out to a Detective Zamboni, who had been doing a lot of the, staying in touch with Hicks, and he was kind of not his friend, but, he was like, hey, Jimmy, how's it going? And that sort of thing. And let's talk. And so James Hicks reached out to Zamboni, Detective Zamboni, and said, I'll show you where all the bodies are and admit to everything if you let me do my time in Maine. Because Maine was easy for him, And so anyways, that's how that went. It took months, but he got back to Maine, and he did his time in Maine, wanted to do his time in Maine. So he came back, and he took them to all the locations of where all the bodies were. And they were all pretty much in different places. Lynn was, and this is going to be just a warning or whatever, trigger warning. What he did to these victims after he killed them is pretty disgusting. And so for Lynn Willette, he had dismembered all of his victims. My mother, I'll tell you what he did I'll start with his wife. So what he did with her was he strangled her. He put her in his vehicle. He went out on the airline road towards Calais, and after a few days, and he dismembered her. And he put her head in a cooler with concrete, and he disposed of the remaining body parts throughout different towns. But he kept her head in a cooler, kept it for probably at least 20-something years, carried it around with him. Oh, my
word.
In the back of his truck. The worst part was he had it at the kitchen table and made his children sit and eat breakfast and stuff. And her head was in the cooler. And they did not know that. Terrible. And with my mother, he had put her in the trunk. He had actually gone to work the next day, and he had he did work at mills. So they always check your vehicle, the trunks and stuff. She was in the trunk. They never once checked it that day. I mean, it's this guy just kept getting away with, slipping through the cracks, I guess. And anyways, what he did with my mother, he had strangled her, and he moved her down with a wheelbarrow down back where I had actually started digging. He left her there for 2 weeks. This was in October. After 2 weeks, I can't even fathom going down there and dismembering someone. And when he admitted to these crimes I have the actual cassette tapes of his confession. He referred to my mother as Jolene. He didn't even know her name. He didn't care. Jolene, that's what he would call her. And he would talk about dismembering them like you would talk about with your friend about going somewhere, just some casual conversation. And with my mother, go ahead.
The image on the screen is where they found your mom, right?
Yes. So with that, they would tell us that he had told them about the remains. I found out 15 minutes before it was announced that he was coming back to Maine, and he said he would disclose where the remains were. I had 15 minutes before the TV came on to tell.
Wow.
So it was shocking. It was like 18 years after she had disappeared. So it was a long time. And then all of a sudden, bam, this happens. And so we kind of had to figure out where they were going. And I had a feeling they would be at that location. So that's where I went that morning, that I knew that they were going to be looking, for the remains. And sure enough, they were there. And I remember standing out there all day with binoculars and with family members and stuff, and just waiting. And so my mother was buried under a pig pen. It was a building at the time, and then it had fallen down and been removed, but she was buried there, not far down. He had dismembered her, but he had kept her remains all together. I'm not sure why. And she still had her socks and her Dexter shoes on when they dug her up, and her lucky penny that was in her shoe. That obviously wasn't so lucky. But anyways, she had her mother's ring still on, the skeletal remains. And then Jenny, they found her head.
Did they say how your mom died?
Yeah,
he's strangulation. Because he told them. That's right.
Yep. And the bone, I think they can tell by a bone in your neck. So all of the pieces were there. And Jenny, the only thing they found of Jenny, his wife, was her head encased in the concrete, and he buried it under an apple tree finally after decades, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Lynn was kind of all over the place. It's so sad. He took her in Holton, and he put her head in a cooler with cement, and he left two buckets, I think, and left them in where they take the salt and dirt from when they sand and stuff during the winter. He had found this place,
town garage.
Yeah, the Haynesville Woods up in that area, Tombstone every mile. He did put her head there, and I think her arms, and then he took the remaining body parts and scattered them in a different area, like coastal, I think, somewhere. He took them all around and found these remains. And I remember we knew instantly when they located them, because they put the blue awning up over so they could start sifting and removing. It was a long process. And
had she been strangled as well?
All of them had been strangled.
That's what. So that's his MO, right? Strangulation and then dismemberment.
Yeah. Can you still see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna turn my auto, like my battery. Sorry, battery saver thing on. But anyways, can you see me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wasn't good. There we go. So so they found them, and then they took the remains to the medical examiner's office, and he did all that. I remember my brother broke down, and he took off from the scene so fast that he got into an accident right there.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was sad.
Wow.
He's a quiet guy, and he didn't know his dad. Now his mom. He loved his mom, and that was hard. So I don't see my brothers much. One of them I stay in contact, like every couple of years or something. Might talk to him or that sort of thing on Facebook. But other than that, I don't have any real communication with any family members at all. So, that, my mother's, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that like when you finally knew that, like, they had him and that you were able to find out where your mother was?
I think that for me, I can tell you what it was for me. That was harder than not knowing for 18 years. And I'll tell you why. People don't understand that when things like this happen, you still, like the news, Don Colson would do a story about my mother and about the other women every year, just to keep it in the news, keep it, and so it was always, people would talk about it with me, people would ask me questions, that sort of thing. So it's almost like it's still getting the attention, and then all of a sudden, when he's sentenced and it all comes to an end, everybody goes about their life. It's kind of like when someone is murdered and the news is like all about it, and you don't have time to really think about it, and then all of a sudden it's done, it's gone. So you're expected to go on with your life. Everybody else goes on with your life, and you're left here wondering, like, now what? It's hard to explain, but that was harder for me than her missing. And I guess it's hard for me to explain. And, but it just, it's so much to think about, like looking back about how dysfunctional, how crazy of a life, how following him, how digging, how, like, it don't seem like normal to me. People were like, I'm so sorry and whatever. And I'm just like, it's just another day. Honestly.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. And that makes sense too, right? Because everyone else looking in, it's like it's the end of the story for them. And for you, that's like the end of that part of your life. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, it's strange. And I learned to I was determined to move forward and have a good life and break that chain of welfare, chain of dysfunction or alcoholism, that sort of thing. But I will tell you, he went to court, and that was the best time. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh
no, we lost video though.
I think we might have had a. Hopefully the phone didn't die. She said she was putting on her battery saver mode.
I heard that.
So we did. Well, there's hopefully she gets back soon, because there's a lot of comments here.
I'm looking it up now about James Hicks. I believe he was found guilty of all those crimes because he told them where the bodies were just so he wouldn't have to stay in Texas. He wanted to be extradited to Maine.
Yeah, is he still alive too?
He is still alive.
Rotting. How long did what was his sentence for? Do you have any idea?
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah. And Matt saying she will be back. I'm assuming that's someone close. Oh man. What a roller coaster that must have been to have to live through.
And I knew Tammy for a couple of years before I even knew about, who her mom was and her story. And you would never guess, like, Tammy's the nicest woman, funny.
What year was that he actually? So that must have been just about 2000, right? That he actually like confessed everything. Are you looking that up now?
Yeah, I'm looking it all up. I apologize because usually I know all these things like the back of my hand, and then with this one,
yeah, Randa's saying 2000, I believe, as well. Yeah, I can't imagine that poor wonderful old lady who, like, getting put through all that entire situation and still having the fortitude to pay attention and writing out the note of, like, just a way so that people would know that it probably wasn't her that wrote it, and then listening for where he was, knowing where he was, and
exactly.
Being brave enough to actually unlock that door and get away, because there's a lot of people that don't have that in them, that probably would not have made it through that. You have to wonder what his goal was, right?
Right. This It's just weird. I guess a lot of serial killers have the same MO, right? They do the same things. It's like repeating themselves over and over again. I'll give a shout out to Kristen Seavey. She does Murder She Told podcast. She did a 2-part series on this James Hicks, and I believe she actually talked to Tammy on that podcast as well. It's very informative, kind of gives you more details on what we're covering tonight. I think it's like 2 hours long, but check that out if you can. Murder She Told. And Kristen's from Newport as well, so she's right from the same area where this all happened. All right, we'll give it a few more minutes here to see if Tammy's able to jump back on. Apologize.
Yeah, I'm assuming she either lost internet or lost power to her device. And she was really getting to a good part too, because she was saying like the trial, the best part, and she cuts out.
That's something that stuck with me over the years is how strong she was during the trial, and she actually covered the victim statement to James Hicks, and well, hopefully she's jumped back, gets back on here and is able to tell you guys herself. So this is the Gateway Lounge where her mom disappeared from. This is actually Tammy in this picture.
Oh, okay.
So that was a few years ago. That's her mom.
And she said that was a photo that she didn't think her kids had seen, right?
Yes. Justice for Rob Morrison Jewers. I just pulled him up and he did get life sentence 12/4/2000. Thank you.
Good. Piece of shit. Pardon my language, but fuck him.
Jennifer Wright needs to get back on here.
Yeah.
Let's see if she's messaged me.
I know it was like, oh, here we go. Oh. Hey, okay. We got her back.
Oh my God, so sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
And I thought it was the battery, but it I don't know. It wasn't. It was still on 15%. But anyways, are we still live and everything?
No, yes, we are. And you were just saying that you're talking about it when you cut out. You were talking about like the best part, something along those lines, was like during the trial.
Yeah. So we went to he was charged with murder, 2 murders, because he had already been charged and done his time for Jenny, so he couldn't be charged again. So I had a chance to see him face to face and write a victim statement, and it was like 6 pages long. And what I did, and call me petty, whatever, I knew by this time what would get under his skin, and I did that. So I got to read that, and he had to sit there and listen to it. And I also brought up Jenny's sister, because she wasn't allowed to ever give a statement to him, and they wouldn't allow her at this one as well, this court hearing or sentencing, because it didn't have anything to do with Jenny. So I had her stand with me at the podium, and I looked directly at him while I read it, and everything in it was intentional to get under his skin and for him to think, because I knew that he was a narcissist, he was that type of person that it would get to him. So I read it, and he was so mad. And I remember my last words to him were, these 18 years have been a roller coaster ride for me. Today, the roller coaster stops, I get off, and I leave you behind. And he was so mad. He told his lawyer, things she said are not true. I need to say something. I need to be able to talk. And he said, no, you need to just not talk. So as he was leaving, he got 2 life sentences for the murder of my mother and the murder of Lynn Willette. And Maine, of course, has no death penalty, and there's no chance of parole in Maine. And so he's still alive. He's still in prison. And as he was walking out of the courtroom, he said to Detective Zamboni, he said, if you ever let me out, I will kill her. He's never getting out.
He's never getting out.
No, and he's treated behind bars So you get treated pretty much behind bars the way you act behind bars. So if you're not a problem, you're treated pretty well, you know, for the most part. And so my someone I knew worked at the corrections, actually an ex-husband, worked as a corrections officer at the prison. And at first I started asking every day, what is he doing? What is he doing? What's he like? What's, you know, and I had to stop. And he did say all he has in his cell is a picture of the Tasmanian devil. That's it. Nothing else. No TV, no nothing.
Yeah.
And he's very quiet. He's in his 70s now. And I don't believe anybody visits him. He wanted to come to Maine so that his family would visit him, and I don't believe any of them visited him. I actually worked with his sister when I worked at Ames Department Store when I was, 15 years old.
Wow.
Through quite a while. Yeah. So, and we talked and stuff, but she believed him that he didn't do it. Most of his family believed him, but.
But
yeah.
it is kind of a hard thing to try and think of a loved one that way. I mean, without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely. I do agree. And that's why I never have once treated his family members poorly. That is not their fault. And I guess the last part is people don't understand. Some people can't understand why I actually have some empathy for him. You probably won't either. But he had a really bad childhood and doesn't excuse what he did. But the things that his mother did to him and forced him to do were unspeakable. But there are a lot of people that happens to and they don't kill people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, there's plenty of. That's me. I have some empathy for that part of him.
You were pen pals with him for a while, I think you told me at one point, right?
No, I was pen pals with another person that killed a person that caught shoplifters. So that's a whole nother story. That's probably where you got that from. But,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Told you we're getting older.
Yeah, and I've always thought about sending him a card.
You should.
But but then it's like
get well soon card.
Yeah, or how's it going? And how's your day? I don't know, but he's there still.
Randa has a question for you. If you could speak to him again in prison, would you?
Would I speak to him?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'd love to sit down across the table from him. Absolutely. And I would ask him why. Why? What did you get from all of that? What led you to strangle? He said that every one of the women turned their backs to him. Like his wife was leaving him, and every time he strangled somebody, they had turned their back literally turned their back to him. And he was so full of himself that
you have to be. I mean, that's 100% just.
Oh, he thought he was a ladies' man. Yeah, he thought he was a ladies' man.
How dare you turn your back to me? You don't I deserve your attention. So if you're not going to give it to me, I'm going to kill you. It's
and people
disgusting.
They wonder why he killed my mother, because he didn't date her. The other two he dated, and there's things that came out that happened when he visited the home that night, and I saw him standing over my bed. I think they fought, and they left and fought, and that's probably most likely the reason he killed her.
So you think that he was trying to do something to you and she kind of caught him or something, right?
So I was put under hypnosis because I kept saying there was a man over my bed. There was a man over my bed. And it came out in that hypnosis that's what had happened. She came in, they fought, and they left and went to the lake. And that's where it happened. So, but, I guess for a while, sometimes I thought it was my fault, or because I said, I hope you die. But I had to work through all that anger. I had anger for her for a long time. And it really, a lot of it, the alcoholism and stuff, destroyed good part of my life. I didn't have a childhood. I left home at, I think by 12, 13 years old, I had left home. I was couch surfing, and found some good people that gave me guidance. And
Wow.
when I was 15, complete strangers let me move in. My best friend's family let me stay there and couch surf early, when I was 13 and 14 and in school. And I ended up graduating when I was 17. And so, yeah, that's how that went.
Yeah, we have a comment here. Amy Tardy says, Tammy, you've persevered through so much in your life, and it's remarkable how far you've come. The strength you've shown is amazing, and you're a great role model for our children.
Thanks,
So,
Amy.
and I just have to say, I've seen a lot of these comments. There's like a ton of them. One of the strongest women I know. Just a ton of comments like that, and I can see it. Like before, like I didn't know anything about this story or what you had been through, but after hearing all of this, it really is amazing. Like it's really good to finally hear like the end of a story, because quite often, we talk about cold cases and people don't get the the resolve or whatever. There's no resolution for most of these people. So it's good to hear this. It's unfortunate, obviously, but you've done a lot.
Thank you. I am glad that for the closure, and I try to encourage people that I see have missing family members to don't lose hope, and it can happen. And this is a perfect example of it happening. And but that pain of never knowing, I can't, terrible for people.
Yeah. I would like to get a chance to go through some of these comments. Also, people, if people who are listening, if this is your first time seeing us, if you like sort of how this is like what we're doing here, if you'd give us a follow or subscribe on YouTube or whatnot, we would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely
helps us get these stories out.
Definitely.
So Matt Tully says, Rhonda, she is an amazing woman and friend. I'll try and get through some of these questions. So they've been piling up, and it was hard to.
Sure.
Sorry that we didn't get to these earlier, but this did a very good job explaining, giving us the full story here. So we didn't want to interrupt that.
Sure.
Heidi, proud of you, Tammy. You are the strongest woman I know. You've been through, and you've not let it get you make you bitter. You always let your light shine and set the best example for others. Jennifer King says, proud of you, friend. Another one, Wendy Renee Pooler Dougal. Tammy is one of the strongest women I know, more and more, and I can definitely see where that's coming from. I don't know if we did this one. This must have been from earlier. I second this. She is an amazing role model for her children and grandchildren, and not only has broken the cycle, but has used what she has been through to guide her children and grandchildren through their own trials and tribulation. She's such a special person. There's a lot of love for you.
Thanks. I have a lot of good people in my life.
Yeah, and it's very obvious.
Did you see CJ's question? It says, do you think the name Lynn is a trigger for him?
That's a good question.
Do you know what his mom's name is?
Raylyn.
Raylyn? Cut it out.
Yep.
No way.
Raylyn. Yeah, because I looked I pulled out the book that was written today. Well, I pulled it up online, and I was looking through it, and because of dates and stuff like that, and he talked about his mom, Raylyn. Yeah. Wow. I'd never ever thought about that. Jenny Lynn.
Wow, good. Yeah, Lynn. Good job, CJ. That was a
CJ?
good pickup. Yes, this is CJ Jefferson Norvell.
Oh, yes, we're related.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Never thought of that. Interesting.
And Krista Carney, we love you, Tammy Meunier-Pease. I think they must have added you there.
Yep.
And Sarah Tully, she's an amazing woman. Love you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that. Holy.
I never even
Yeah.
had thought of that.
So yeah, they.
Interesting.
It's
My
crazy.
mom, a lot of people that knew my mother always said she was always a good person and a good friend. And again, I've come to peace with that I don't think she did it to be. I think she just made some really bad decisions and choices to find love in the bottle and in men, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
How old was
um,
your mom when she passed away?
I want to say 37, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
I mean,
and
and
you
it's
also
like
have to think. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
You also have to think that one of the last acts your mom may have done is to try to protect you, right? Oh,
Oh,
Alrice, you still there?
there we go.
Yep.
You have to think that maybe one of the last things your mom did is try to protect you, right? So
Mhm.
ultimately, she
Yeah.
was a good
Yeah.
mom.
I would like to think that absolutely, that's what she was doing. And I wish that I would know now how she would be, to be around my kids, my grandkids. Like, would she have gotten sober? I would like to know the person that she would be. So I've missed out on all of that. And I've always been open with my kids about everything I experience, and they've always been supportive. And it's like, I think they look at me like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, you learn, and you can either follow the cycle that you've grown up in, or you can break that cycle. And my two brothers have also, I would say, broken the majority of the cycle, but addiction runs high in our family, alcoholism. And unfortunately, you get sucked into that, and it's hard to get out. And that's how you cope. You self-medicate. And you'll ask anyone, alcohol is not my thing. I don't like it. So, yeah, I didn't get that gene, I guess. I got my dad's gene, who never drank a drop of alcohol in his life. Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, another comment here from Lisa Belfiore Dunphy. Tammy is an awesome person. And another comment from Carrie Bickford: street smarts can't be taught out of a book. Tammy is smarter than most I know, with an 8-year education, with experience in their field. And so many have benefited from her life experiences.
Are you
yeah.
Have you helped others? Is that what she's alluding to?
Yeah. Yeah. I get put in some strange situations. My family, nothing surprises them anymore. And Carrie, right now, yes, I'm actually working on something right now that has recently happened. And there was a young woman murdered in Fairfield. And her parents called from South Carolina. It was the Luke Tiemann case, Valerie Tiemann.
Yes. I was going to actually bring that up. Thank you.
Yeah. So I kind of knew how they felt. Their daughter was missing. They're far away. And I called my friend in the state police when I was working asset protection in Walmart, because they had called the Walmart security desk to look at videos. And he came in and he said, if you're calling me, I know there's something. She'd been missing a couple weeks. He went to Fairfield PD, and within 24 hours, they took over the case. And I drove that night. I didn't even know these people. Drove to the home where she was living with her husband and his family in Fairfield. My husband followed along, just shaking his head, and so did my son, and said, okay. And I took all of her belongings out of that house because they were afraid these people would destroy her belongings. Put them in our house, and for like 9 months, we didn't even have Christmas that year because we had no room. And I sat many nights going through her belongings for her family, reading her writings. Finally, within about a week after the state police took over, they found her body.
Yeah.
And he had killed her. And I just knew something was wrong. I get these feelings. I know my kids and my husband are sitting there watching, going, "You guys just don't know. You have no idea."
You don't know what she is capable of. She used to stalk a serial killer.
Yeah, nothing surprises them anymore.
I remember when you did all that too. You're telling me about it too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
And my husband and I packed the items into a Penske truck, and we drove them to her family and met her family. And to this day, I'm not sure if they're on here watching right now. Yeah, they're still in our life. So
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's so awesome to see, like for everything that you've been through, you turned it into the experience for helping other people. You know, everything that you've experienced, and like you said, rather than turning to wallowing and hurting from it. And I don't doubt that you do hurt and you have your moments for sure, but it's very obvious that you're taking all of this and using what you know for really good things, and it's amazing to see.
And I think that was part of my healing. I do heal through that by helping. Oh, Heidi Herto.
Yeah, she said, I think you hit the nail on the head, Tammy, when you commented, you live what you have experienced. She lived what she knew. If she had other opportunities or experiences, she surely would have made different choices. Fortunately, you had the strength to break it and and do so much better.
Yeah.
I have so many good people in my
life. He had asked us earlier too. The kids that were taken away, anyone know what happened to them? So I'm guessing James Hicks children.
Yeah. So his kids, the ones that were taken away before he left for Texas with Brandy, I read that she did get 2 of her children back. One I think was adopted out, but she did get 2 of them back. To this day, I'm not sure if she has them or if they're grown or what. But his children were abused by him, physically, sexually, and I get their pain. I understand it. I just hope that they've gone on to live a better life and to heal from it. To carry that embarrassment, I'm sure, and the fact that your father killed 3 women, it's got to be a lot to carry. Definitely.
And like you're talking about with like alcoholism, like they're probably worried it runs in their genes as well, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. What did Garrison?
And Garrison said, if Nancy Drew and Sherlock Holmes had a child, meet my mother.
Yeah.
Your daughter had said she has powers, so everything always follows her, she says.
Oh, it does. And it's just like, even right now, I'm working on something and to help someone that just recently had something tragedy, and trying to research and uncover some things and help them.
Well, yeah, you're messaging me about Alex Jackson's case.
Yeah, something is just pushing me with that one. Oh, I can't stop thinking about it, and I just keep going back to it. So, yeah, and I probably, I don't know, should be in some line of work of that, but it is what it is. It finds me anyways.
Right. Might as well get paid for it, right?
Yeah.
When you did,
my family just accepts it at this point. They don't even question it.
I remember one thing about you. I always remember is when you did asset protection. You know, you'd catch these teenage girls stealing makeup or whatever it was, and you'd like the care you took with them, and you try to figure out why they're doing it, and kind of without telling them your story, but kind of say, "Hey, I know how this turns out. Like, this is not the path you want to go down." I always really I forget the what I'm trying to say, but yeah, you're always good with them.
I know what you're saying, because we have a group of kids. I don't know if we're running out of time or not, but
oh no, we have no time limit.
Okay, so we have been having a problem in Fairfield for the last few years with some juveniles that are just out of control, And my kids are grown. I don't have any kids in the school system. I don't have any grandkids in that town. And I got mixed up in that. And I mean, I'm glad to have helped. And Jennifer King on here, and Buffy Clifford, and Wendy Dougal, we all have worked hard on that and trying to get it under control, because people are feeling threatened and afraid, and you should never be afraid to be in your community and walk in your community. And that was terrible. And so we worked on that. And where I'm going with this is, these kids would say terrible things to me, to some of these other ladies when they saw us or whatever. Well, I was walking one night with my dog, and I came upon them, and they started videotaping me, and it was dusk, and I don't care who you are, I will still call you out. And I said, what are you doing? And the big tough one that was the leader of the gang, he's like, oh, you messed with us all last summer. I said, you earned all that, buddy. And so we met up down at the Cumberland Farms, and he was running his mouth, and I got nose to nose to him. And I said, if you're going to talk shit about me, you better look me in the eye and talk shit about me. And he just kind of was like, and then I said, you know what? I bet you don't think I understand what you're going through at home. I said, maybe not the exact same things, but listen to this. And I just told him a little bit, and the look in his eyes was like, what? And one of the other punks that was there, said, he started running their mouth about me, and he said, shut up, she's talking. And he reached out to me. This went on for like a year or more, that, they had been harassing everybody. And he reached out to me privately after that, and he said, I just want to tell you I'm really sorry for what I said to you and what I've done to this community. And I said, buddy, you want to change your ways, I'll be your biggest supporter. But he, I think he wants to, but he's stuck right now. But that just goes back to, when people think that you don't understand, they don't know people's background and what people have been through. So don't judge a book by its cover. And so he had no idea. He just thought I was, I had the perfect life. I had this, I had that. But I can relate to you. I can relate to what you're going through and why you're making some of these choices. I made a lot of choices in my life I wish I could go back and change. And some of the survival skills I learned throughout the years, everybody's like, you're so strong, you're so strong. But what they don't realize is, yeah, I'm strong, and I did survive, but some of those survival skills aren't good ones. Travis knows what I'm talking about. So you have to make a decision at some point to change and let those survival skills go so you can have a better life. And it's a lot of therapy sometimes. You have to have a sense of humor too.
Right,
And
right.
it is what it is. I mean, I kept my mother's shoes that she was found in. You really have to have a sense of humor, because you can't just be dark all the time. And she was wearing a pair of shoes, and the lucky penny obviously wasn't friggin' lucky, but whatever. I still have that. And her shoes were Dexter shoes, and I was like, those things were in pristine condition after all that time of being buried. I mean, come on. They
So you're a
could
big
use
supporter
those
of Dexter shoes.
I was like, holy moly, that's incredible. So again, you got to have some sense of humor with everything, and can't be serious all the time, and try to do the right thing and be a good person and help people. So
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's where'd that go? We did have another comment from Darcy Smith. The world definitely
Darcy.
needs more people like her in it. I've said this many times over the years, and I 100% agree. We could make a superhero comic book about you. What did he get for a sentence? I think I missed that. He got two life sentences. We did go over that already.
Yep.
And Wendy's I keep telling me we need to open our own private investigation business.
Yeah,
I think you'd probably
we
do
do.
pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God.
Danielle, it's Travis's wife, says, I seriously love this, and I'm loving this too.
Yeah.
Let's see another comment from Jennifer King. The punks surely had an eye opener from us ladies. We aren't done yet.
Yep. She's right about
Jasmine
that.
said,
Yep.
Jasmine
Go
says, proud of you, Tammy.
Thanks, Jeff. But yeah, it's crazy. And
did you see
What
Fern's comment?
What's that?
Did you see Fern's comment?
Fern,
Fern Dawson says, I dated him and took care of his kids.
Yeah. She did.
In the
In
trailer park.
TNT Trailer Park. Okay.
Yep. Yes, she did. It was in Levant, was it?
I think she said in Carmel.
Carmel. Yep. Actually, I read was looking through the book today, and her name was in there, and yeah, she's lucky she made it out alive.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, she didn't have Lynn as her name, right? So
Yeah, that's craziness.
that is really
nuts.
bizarre.
was
I'm
pretty
surprised that no one's picked up on that before. But that's a
Yeah.
really good spot. Was it CJ that said that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fern. I could have been the next. No, absolutely.
Yeah, and his Linda Marquis that he married, I did meet with her. My aunt and I met with her privately, and you know, when you don't know someone, you're thinking, oh, she's going to be a terrible woman. You know, she's living with a guy that's, you know, women have come up missing, but people do things for different reasons. They stay for different reasons, and she was a nice woman. I mean, you know, you would think not knowing her, she would be evil, or these women that lived with him. No, they were just as much victims of him.
Yeah.
They
absolutely.
had no part in these murders. None. They have no responsibility in it. So, nor do his children.
No. Yeah, and it's very obvious that you have a lot of empathy and compassion for people and all these, for everything that you've been through. It's still right there at the forefront. So that's really good to see.
Yeah. So one day we'll get that message that he's died, and I'm not sure how that'll be. I've thought about that recently, so maybe that means
Let's have a party.
Die soon. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be weird. I don't know. So I would love to talk to
I mean,
him.
just another closing chapter, right? For
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
crazy story.
Yep.
Someone asked if Fern's middle name was Lynn, and she said no, it's Marie. So that's why she's a survivor.
Lucky for you, Fern. Yeah, definitely. And my middle name is Lynn. So,
Oh,
It is? Oh, no doubt.
yeah, Tammy Lynn.
And I
Yeah.
was actually going to make comment like this. You know, hopefully he sees it's in prison. Do you think he'll see this podcast in prison? Maybe you could send it to prison and ask him to watch it.
Yeah, like, I'm sure they have access to computers. That would be awesome. Or somebody to tell him about it. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
I wonder
Yeah.
if he does do that. Like, they probably do have some sort of internet. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, yeah, they've updated a few things recently. They can do quite a bit in prisons and jails now.
Maybe somebody that works there will see it. Or,
Yeah, if there's a guard or someone.
Yeah, well, so my ex-husband who worked there at the time did have an interaction with him, and Jimmy was sick or something, and he wanted to go back into his cell. So this person went to let him in, and you know, he's used to being treated nice, and my ex-husband slammed the door behind him, and he's like, well, what was that for? You know, and because he goes, I feel like shit. My ex-husband said, you're a piece of shit, and walked off. And he's like, well, why? Why do you say that? You know,
Yeah,
but,
maybe because you murdered several people. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I bet he doesn't.
The
even think about
narcissism
it.
still shines through, apparently.
Yeah, I would like to know where his kids are, especially his daughter Veronica. That's who I went to school with, and know what her life is like right now. You know, and I hope it's good and stuff. So I don't know. I could find her, I'm sure. So, but who knows?
So, well, I don't know if you ever have a reason to make it north, but if you ever get through Solon and you stop at the Solon Hotel and you want a meal, it's covered on me. That's where I work. So,
What?
if you ever make it through, yeah.
That's where my mother always went.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
No doubt.
The Solon Hotel. So my ex-husband, my first husband, my Garrison Aranda's dad, played there last weekend. Todd Hardy.
With The
Automatic.
6 Ways to Sunday? Automatics. Yes. Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
actually get to see them. I heard I heard that the lead singer is amazing though.
Yes, she is. So he's the drummer, and he's actually amazing. We're great friends. We all go camping together and everything. So yeah. When my daughter was just up there with a bunch of people listening, and I said, "Oh,
no kidding!
Maybe you see my mother's ghost up there." Those
Yeah,
are
she
her
said,
stomping grounds.
Randa just said, "Yes, I was there at the Soho."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love
Okay.
to,
No kidding. Yeah. No kidding. That is awesome. Yeah. I wasn't there that night. I usually work the days, or I bounce on nights where it's busy. I'm a bartender and bouncer up there.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah, but offer still stands. If you want to come up sometime and get a meal, I'll cover it for you.
Definitely. I would love to meet you. And
will you buy mine too?
No, Travis.
No, I see you all the time. But you guys do great work. Yeah, I want to say you guys do great work as well. Bringing these missing people, their stories out and letting their families talk, and you never know what it will trigger in someone. Like, oh man, I saw this, or maybe this is important. It's just the little things that can solve a case. And you guys bringing all these cases, to light. Mine is solved, but there's so many missing people out there, and so it's great work that you guys do.
It's crazy.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we worked together, but I remember talking to you about these cases, and like Ayla's case, that all happened, and how touched I was by that you and I spoke about it.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's like a full circle now, so it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you and I have a lot of the same thoughts on different things and why people do the things they do, or these crimes that have taken place. And so it's interesting stuff. I love to investigate and stuff like that. So I figure things out and help people. I'd rather take their pain on most times than them keep it. It's funny because I think survivors feel like I've survived this, so I can take any amount of pain, but you feel like others can't survive it, if that makes sense. Like you want to take their pain away and help them.
You've been through it, so you can get through it, so you want to try to take theirs.
Yeah. But
Randa says,
go ahead. Yeah.
Randa says, thank you for having my mom on here to share her story. She has not spoken a ton publicly about this, but I'm so glad she has. You guys are awesome.
Definitely part of the healing process. I will tell you that. Definitely. So I appreciate that. Yeah. And Travis reached out, the day after my mother's birthday?
Yeah. We talked about that too. I was like, that's crazy too.
We
were supposed to talk to somebody else tonight, and then they weren't able to make it. And like, oh, you know what? Tammy and I always want to try to do this. So thank you so much for such short notice. I think it was Sunday, right? When I reached out to you.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, just reach out, and I'll be there. So very much appreciate it. And thanks everyone for being so kind to me.
Everyone's been great. And Fern.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope Fern's doing well. I don't know her, but I've heard of her in the story and stuff. So.
Fern's also saying her niece was Tina Stadig, who's missing from Skowhegan. We actually did a march for her with. I'm not sure if you were there, but some of her family was there for that. We marched through Skowhegan and protesting and nothing's happening.
I talked to his mom a couple different times about coming on the show and talk about her case. But I think she will be on here soon, maybe with her sisters.
Yeah. Wasn't she tied to they have a suspect or they think they do? Is that the one? Yeah. Yeah. So
Wendy.
There was go ahead. Wendy.
Oh. Wendy says, what a great podcast. Thank you for having this wonderful woman on and have her tell her story. Thank you.
Thanks,
we're
Wendy.
Very lucky for her to join us tonight.
Yep. So, well, I'll keep watching definitely, and I hope people will start to subscribe to you or follow you, and they'll learn a lot, and maybe they'll help solve some cases.
Yeah.
So, Yep.
Hey, Garrison. Garrison, do you remember meeting me? I met you at Central Maine Motors. We were both getting vehicle. I was buying a vehicle.
Remembers Garrison.
Yeah, I think I was buying a vehicle, and maybe he was buying one, or he was having work done. I don't remember, but somehow him and I just started talking. Oh, Tammy, mom.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's funny because Garrison. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
So Garrison was probably when I remember when they said that it was going to be on the news, or Hicks was going to come back and disclose where the body, the remains were. Well, the media, of course, started camping outside our house and to try to get an interview. And I remember the day I granted an interview to, I think it was Alan Grover, maybe. I think it was. He was for Channel 5 News or something. Anyways, they were coming to the house, and Garrison, I remember him coming down over the stairs. He was probably, so that was in 2000. He was probably 7 or 8. And he comes down over the stairs with his little dress shirt and dress pants and a tie on and all ready for his interview. I'm like, so I remember that. And yeah, that was a hard time because some people didn't know, and then we've got the media camping out, and that was just, so, and then at the courthouse and things like that. So that gets hard, and I can understand how it's hard for some family members that are in the, spotlight. Like my case wasn't even as big or whatever, and they are chased by media. That's hard, and sometimes people forget that they're human and they have feelings and they need some space. So, yep. But I remember that, Garrison.
Where'd that go?
Are you trying to do the same one I am?
No, I didnn't click. It just disappeared. Anyways, Heidi says there's an older. Oh.
I've spoken to her brother, Francis. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to read the comment. Yeah, there's an older but very interesting case of a young mother from Aroostook County that you could cover. Her last name is Pictou, I believe.
Pictou.
I don't know how that spells.
Yep.
Okay.
Huh.
And I've spoken to her brother Francis before, about a year and a half ago, about possibly coming on the podcast, but we weren't able to make things work. But I do want to cover that story. And she's Native American as well, so I think a lot of times women of that descent seem to get the shaft on things.
Absolutely. And
the murder rate is like 50% higher than any other population. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Heidi Hurto that just made that comment. It's interesting. So when I started with Ames Department Store for the asset protection, her husband George worked for my husband and I in asset protection. He used to be a police officer, I think in Massachusetts. So he knows all about this story, and so they know a lot of the people up in the county and things like that. They're good people, and yeah. So it's funny how it all comes around.
Yeah, I used to work with a guy that knows the story well. He's from that area. He knows the family and everything. Virginia.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know the story, so I'll have to go read about it. I try to keep up on the missing people and what's going on with the cases and stuff like that. Sad, there's quite a few. There's too many.
It's a good place to keep up on them is on Locating the Lost. Follow us on Facebook. And all that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Jennifer Lynn King says, "Let's find Shirley Moon now." Hopefully, Jennifer, we did cover the Shirley Moon Atwood case on here.
Yeah. So I know the woman that he killed, the Borley. I think he killed Borley, right? He was convicted of that one.
Who are we talking about now? I'm sorry.
Atwood.
Shannon Atwood.
Yeah, wasn't he convicted for the Gorley case? Was that her name?
No,
I think I went to school with.
Come on, Jeff.
Yeah,
Pull it out, Jeff.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was. Cheryl. He was convicted of killing Cheryl. Yes.
Oh, right.
So,
yes. Yeah. That. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he was convicted of killing her. I knew her. And we went to school together, and then I ended up setting up some transportation for her when I worked for a transportation company. So he recently passed away though, right? In prison?
Yes, and actually there's a comment here about that too. Sarah says, I worked with a woman who has never been found, but her husband was convicted of killing his girlfriend. He just died in prison. Shannon Atwood was her husband, and her name was Shirley Moon Atwood.
Yep. How sad for her family. Yep.
It's Cheryl Murdoch, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Cheryl Murdoch.
Yes.
That's it. I don't know why I thought Gorley. Cheryl Murdoch.
Yeah, it was Sharon and Shirley and yeah, just I remember it being very confusing trying to keep up with the yes names.
He reminds me of Hicks. Absolutely. Like
the funny thing is my last name is Atwood, and I live in Seoul, and I'm relatively close to where that all happened. I was concerned he actually kind of looks a little bit like me. I was concerned I might have been related somehow.
Oh, really?
You might be.
Yeah.
I lived in Solon with my mother for a while.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. No kidding.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's just.
She was dating a man there, not a nice man. Hayden was the last name. So, yeah, we lived in a lot of places. So, one school year it was like 5 different schools I went to.
Oh wow!
So,
wow.
Yeah, we would get in the back. I remember several times being in the back of a truck in the middle of the night with our belongings and riding in the back of the truck, and because we were, the rent was due. So.
Wow.
But anyways, yeah. Yep. So. And it affected all of us, and my brother, who was raised as my cousin, actually never got over the fact that he was, my mother gave him to her sister. He ended up dying, suicide by police.
Oh.
Mechanic.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that haunted him for a long time.
Did he know like his whole life, or did he find out later on in life?
No, I think he knew most of his life. And it's not like he was the last child and she just couldn't take care of another child. He was I think he was just before Tom, I think there's my older brother, and then I think Chris was the next one, and then my other brother, and then me, or he was in between anyways. And so he just never understood, it haunted him, I think, to wonder why was I given up? Again, my mother didn't want to give him away, and was pretty much talked into it by her family. So sad for sure. It affected many people's lives, and I don't think parents understand sometimes. I'm far from perfect, but a lot of parents don't understand their actions, how it affects their children, and for a long time, the things that they do or don't do. And so, yeah, a lot of mental health issues for people. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think people are so selfish nowadays, too.
Like, oh, my gosh. Yep,
I guess it depends on the person, but we're all so busy and caught up with our own lives that the kids kind of get left behind. And
I agree.
Well, Tammy, go ahead.
No, I think I was about to say the same thing roughly you were. Yeah, I think we're probably close to finishing up. If anyone had any more questions that they wanted to get in before we finish up, we'll give you another minute or so to get those in. But
Sarah said Shirley was such a kind soul. I miss her and think of her all the time. I'm so sorry, Sarah.
Sad.
You should start your own podcast.
Oh, Lord, Travis. You know how much I've got going on? I have 8 grandkids.
Could be Grandma Detective.
Yeah, there you go.
Grandma Detective.
Yeah, it was funny. I showed that picture, of my mother to the grandkids and to my kids, and they're just like, it's weird because they just have really no idea, of who, that you sent me when you brightened it up, and so it was kind of weird. It was a shock to me, like you said, but I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, the animated photo. I'm sorry, I was reading Kurt's comment.
Yeah. Oh God, that's my husband.
Yeah. Oh, please no.
Yeah.
To the podcast, I assume.
Oh yeah. See, no, that man, he doesn't even, he just rolls with it, and he doesn't even fight it anymore. So
what conditioning he's learned, right?
Yes, and people will reach out, and he's like, how do they know? How do they get a hold of you? How do they? And it's like, I don't know.
It just happens.
But
he's a silent supporter.
He is. He is. He's had to put up with a lot of stuff, I'll assure you. So craziness, but he's a good man. So I'm lucky.
Yep.
My kids are all supportive, so I'm very lucky. But anyways, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being with us.
It's been fun. It's been, tell the story, and there's a lot more to it. There's, but that's the basics. And glad he got caught. His own selfish reasons that he got caught, but he got to come back to Maine. But
right, his narcissism bit him in the ass, fortunately.
It did. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, hope to meet you, and I'm sure, Travis, I'll see you. What was you going to say?
Oh, Matt said, can you tell us your YouTube channel name? And it should be just under Locating the Lost.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else. It might be Locating the Lost once. I don't remember. But
no, I think it's just Locating the Lost. But anyways, well, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Yeah. You've been very engaging, so it's a lot of really good questions. And thank you again, Tammy, very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
For having me.
It's good seeing you.
Yeah. All right, good to see you. Have a good night, guys.
All right, thank you.
Take care.